It's been whole 8 years, and all I get is early access. What the f? Mount&blade is a grand strategy with RPG and sandbox elements, but with a twist in the combat perspective. You get to experience the battles firsthand. You can either lead an army of your own, or see how it feels to be a footman in a bigger army. The scale can be compared only to Total War games, and the level of player engagement is on par with Overhaul with its large-scale frontline battles. But for about 10 years, the only way to experience the rush of leading hundreds of peasants into battle was Warband, which even at the time of its release looked okay at best. Yet, for those who only wanted to feast and prevent, impeccable graphics weren't an issue. Moreover, to spice up the lonely nights between you, King Halos and his butter, you could use any of the thousands of mods made for the game, including those that change up the setting to medieval Europe, Boer Wars in Africa, and the fields of the Second World War. After 8 years since Bannerlord was first announced, it finally hit the stores in the end of March. And those Mount&blade fans that didn't die of extremely high cholesterol levels can finally enjoy the masterpiece that has been in the oven for so many years. Yet somehow the birthchild of Turkish nationalism came out half-baked. The game is currently in early access, so it basically consists of half-finished ideas, sandbox potential, and a bit of genocide denial. You arrive in Colradia 200 years before the events of Warband, and you get a chance to participate in and even alter the history of the continent. But an occasional bug or crash, a perk not working properly, or a feature that hasn't been even implemented yet would stop you from fulfilling the ancient prophecy of constantly looting villagers and abusing the broken economy of Colradia. And that's where modders come in to fill the void left by TaleWorlds and to earn their bread and butter. For the sake of convenience, modifications are now modular, unlike the previous century, and a mod organizer of sorts is built into the launcher. But for the system to work properly, you have to install Fixed Launcher and BannerLib. The former patches load order, and the latter is a library of features and functions for other mods to use. Install mod configuration menu as well. It is an interface that provides a unified mod option screen for various mods, and the mods can be divided into minor tweaks, character and gameplay changes. Some mods from the first category are all-time classics from Warband, show the settlement from the encyclopedia and assess the prices in the area. The others will make your warmongering much easier. Leave the settlement by clicking on the map. Attack bandit hideouts without waiting until nightfall. And raise your renown and charisma by telling stories in villages and taverns. And if you're having a hard time figuring out
what's heavier,
install improved tooltips. The mod makes comparing items much easier and less confusing. And when some features haven't been even implemented yet, spending more than an hour balancing the units and perks used to be out of the question for TaleWorlds. However, with updates they have actually fixed some of the more blatant issues, but there are still minor things that need tweaking, like attributes affecting nothing but learning rate and limit. Attributes reloaded improves them quite a bit. It adds bonuses to each attribute in addition with a scaling system. The bonuses are also applied to every unit, even common troops. And after playing for a while, you might find the troops and their upgrade trees quite boring and uninspired. Noble Troops tries to change it up a bit by adding new top tier units to every faction, both the common and noble troop trees. And some, like Sturgeons, were given new upgrade paths with completely new units. Yet some ignoble troops like mercenaries and bandits require improvements as well. Soldiers of Fortune brings quite substantial changes to mercenaries and how they work. In addition to hiring them in taverns, you can now recruit neutral mercenaries in villages and towns. Upgrade trees have been expanded a lot, and a familiar unit tree from Warband has been added. But if you don't find the units imbalanced, then maybe you'd want to install one of the beautification mods that make the notables a bit more human, instead of randomized Oblivion characters. However, there are far more pressing issues than just visual mishaps, and Community Patch tries to provide fixes for them. The mod fixes most of the perks, cultural bonuses, how some gameplay mechanics like snow density and food variety work, and adds a couple of debug options. Custom campaign options in turn adds a number of sliders that adjust damage, experience rate, map movement speed, and a couple of other useful settings. Thus you can fine-tune the game to your exact needs. Light Combat Mod Collection is a means to improve some flawed mechanics like auto-resolve, horse charge, or even some AI behavior. It also updates other features that you can't call inherently broken. The amount of damage you can take before stagger, the way a unit is downed, and in-game ballistics. You can install more raiding, a mod that lets you personally participate in raids and expand your reach from measly villages to city centers and taverns. Killing the locals yields money and a chance to get some sweet loot. Fighting a whole city might be challenging on its own, but after a couple of minutes the garrison is deployed to make you regret your bloodlust even more. Moloch's Duels, on the other hand, gives you a way to prove yourself in fair and honorable combat. You can challenge a lord to a friendly duel, or use it as a way to improve your troops' morale before charging the enemy army. The outcome will not only affect the relationship between you and the lord, but also give you a chance to escape from an inevitable battle. And fair tournament armor changes how tournaments work. Not substantially, but it will help you reduce the risk of having a stroke by giving everyone the same equipment. This means that you won't have to fight lords in full armor while wearing a piece of battered cloth. And you can change what armor you get to use through a separate menu option. However, even with all the mentioned fixes and tweaks, you might find the combat system just a bit restrictive and lacking the freedom and customization of other similar titles. Fluid Combat Overhaul gives you a little bit more control over how you dispose of your enemies. It makes the combat feel much more fluid and free-flowing, thus the name. The mod lets you dynamically switch the direction of the attack without releasing the attack button. It also makes it possible to restrict the attack direction to either vertical or horizontal and individually bind the other types of attacks to different keys. For example, locking your attack direction to horizontal and binding overhead and stabbing attacks to side mouse buttons. And the cherry on top that takes your combat experience to the next level is Xorberax Shouler Cam mod. Not only does it change the angle to a proper third-person action camera, but also makes the camera sway with your attacks, thus adding a bit more impact to the swings and making the player much more engaged in the combat. And with spears, the sway makes it much easier to accurately aim the stabs. But in its original form, it's not exactly compatible with fluid combat, so to use these two in tandem, you must install an improved custom version of the mod. It is more customizable, it lets you change the camera sway, the FOV, and use different settings for mounted and on foot. And it boasts a number of different camera modes that you can change as you see fit. Since the game is still in early access and the developers are dedicated to bringing their project to the state of a finished product, it is going to change a lot. And considering the rate at which TaleWorlds update their game, it becomes evident that it's going to be quite rapid. And the modders have to keep pace, updating their mods after almost every change in the game. So to fully experience modded Bannerlord, you have to be on the lookout and closely follow the Bannerlord modding scene. And if it isn't your cup of tea, then you should definitely wait another 8 years for a full release. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And special thanks to all the supporters. You are great people.